Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Woodard. I'm with Kyndryl. We are one of the world's largest managed service providers. We run in over 60 countries. Our CEO likes to say that we have over 400,000 years of experience and combined 200,000 certifications. So if you want to hear more about op modernization, raise your hand, you're in the right place. Oh, only half? App modernization is probably one of the most overused, most overhyped word among most companies and industries today. So I want to talk a little bit more around really what this entails. But again, my name is Steve Woodard. I'm a customer technology advisor at Kyndryl. So I get a chance to work with large customers and help them on their enterprise journey. I'm also the host of a podcast called Tech Travels, so shameless plug there. And I'm located here in Tampa Bay, and I've been here since 1983. Kind of dates myself a little bit, doesn't it? All right, so really, what are we going to talk about today? Really, the agenda is going to talk about when you talk to customers, you want to talk to them about what their future looks like. You want to help them envision the art of the possible. Going about a cultural and technical change is going to be very, very difficult for most organizations. And what you really want to do as a technologist is you really want to paint that broad brush as to what the art of the possible looks like. How do they get started? You want to start with discovery. You want to go through different types of frameworks. You want to talk about all the different types of value mappings. And then ultimately is how are you going to accelerate that journey for that customer? Unfortunately, most customers are going to enter into what they call the stall period. And this is where they start to get caught up in the modernization hype. And 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, they're still figuring out how they really get off the start button. So this is really where you want to start to paint the picture for them, and you want to start getting a buy-in from all the different aspects of their organizations. So some things that we see across the industry, right? So this is really kind of the problem statement, right? So we want to look at this across two different personas. You've got the executives who are looking at this from, hey, how can I get innovation? How can I lower technical debt? How can I start to look at application scalability? From the architect's perspective is that they want to look at how can they get the most out of reducing technical debt? How do they improve application ability? How do they improve application availability? How do they get highly available, fault tolerant? How do they get more resiliency? So this is really where you start to talk to the different personas in each organization, and each one is going to come at it with a different lens, and you have to be ready for kind of both approaches and how you're going to combine that into a unified vision. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Very easy. So what are we looking at today in terms of the landscape across 2024? 70% are still running mainframes. Incredible, right? Almost all of them are still running mainframes. 70% of organizations are still running mainframes. 80% of the estimated IT budgets are consumed by maintaining the legacy software or legacy systems. How many customers or how many people still know of anybody who are still running things like Solaris, AIX, Unix on-prem, right? These systems have yet to be modernized. There are many, many customers out there struggling to figure out how are they going to go about modernizing, getting off Solaris, getting off Unix, things like that. 86% of organizations spend their budgets on maintaining these legacy systems, right? So this is the part at which customers want to say, as things start to get more expensive, because modernization is going to get expensive, how do they start to look at how can I increase the total, basically reduce my return on investment while reducing my total cost of ownership, right? It's this, I want my cake and eat it too, but how do I reduce that cost? Because ultimately, you want to be able to drive down costs. And then of course, 90% of most organizations are going to basically have to experience some sort of hybrid cloud environment. They're going to have to. They can't just keep building data centers. At some point, it just becomes unscalable. So really kind of when you hear this, customers typically react in kind of like 3 or 4 different ways. Number one is modernization is too risky. It's too costly. There's going to be a lot of organization changes that are going to happen in my organization that I'm not really ready for yet. And then, of course, it's going to really just an intense amount of retooling, reskilling of my people in my organization. So these are a lot of the things that you hear, what they call the fear, uncertainty, and doubt aspect of this modernization journey. So it's our job as technologists to really kind of help customers get through this initial fear, uncertainty, and doubt phase. And there is a possibility, right? This is the outcome that they want to achieve, right? When they do this, this is what they're going to get out of it. They want to be able to have the ability to say, listen, of the people who have made the investment to modernize, they're going to be able to have 1,000 times more frequent code deployments, 6,000 times faster lead time to commit, 3% lower change failure, right? Now, we do this through the modernization aspect of it. We don't do this by making people work 80 to 100 hours per week, right? It's just, we can do more with less. We just need to make them work harder. The part about modernization is that this is what ultimately organizations are going to want to drive to. And for organizations really to make this change, these are the benefits they're going to realize. But they're not done just yet. So when you talk about app modernization, there's kind of this whole 7 R's of app modernization, right? How many have heard of the 7 R's of modernization? How many have heard of the 8 R's of modernization? Right, so, well, good thing about this is that executives and architects do agree that, of course, across this industry study is that you do see that architects and executives do agree that the true definition of modernization is through re-architecting or refactoring. And this is really where they used to say, hey, we want to take our old systems, we want to sunset them. We want to be able to look at implementing things like low code, no code. We want to be able to gain insights from all the data that we currently have. And we want to be able to do this in a very prescriptive way that doesn't break too many things too quickly, right? Because sometimes when you venture onto this app modernization journey is you go too fast, you break too many things, and then executives pull the plug and say, there's too many changes, let's stop. So this is kind of a typical trajectory we see, but we see most customers, most industry analysts kind of agree that this is really where most customers are going to land. So this is kind of where you start getting into the paralysis by analysis. There's just too many options for me. I don't know where to start. So how do I get started? So the question is basically is that, why do I want to modernize applications? Well, I want to basically want to reduce technical debt. I want to lower my cost. I want to exploit all of the advantages that AI has to offer. I want to be able to look at my data and AI capabilities. I want to be able to get to all of those cool things that everyone's doing, but I've got to do that by being able to break down all these old school monolithic applications. And this is going to take a good amount of time. So I want to be able to look at things like leveraging cloud, leveraging AI. I want to be able to do things such as transform business models. Okay, now this is the really cool part about transformation, is when I start looking at how do I get to transform the business model that drives an outcome that basically has a better return on investment for my customers and my individual customers internally as well. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at this, but this is typically the trajectory of where we see customers, right? We go from monolith to microservices and we're done, right? Easy. Another picture here, I'm sure everyone has kind of seen this here, is that typically, just to really kind of lay the set, is that monolith is basically is that when you're beginning this journey is you're looking at these applications that have been around for years and years and years. You want to then start to break this apart, and you want to be able to break this down into smaller independent services that are independent of themselves. Netflix had a really great case of this back around 2017 when they did a talk around Netflix mastering a guide to chaos engineering. And if you've not seen that, that's a couple years old, but it still gives you a great illustrative way of understanding is that how do you reduce single points of failure? How do you get to a point at which each service can be operated on individually without impacting the other parts of the application? You want to loosely couple, you want to have development agility, you want to have developer agility, operational agility, and you want to have high availability and resiliency. Those are all the great things that you want to have as part of your modernization journey. So we do this by basically leveraging modernization frameworks. And modernization frameworks is a great starting point because as architects, we love to be able to leverage frameworks. We just don't have enough. I don't think we have enough frameworks. So typically in the path of a modernization journey is that you want to be able to leverage a framework, something that you agree upon as a beginning and ending state. And the modernization framework really just kind of provides you with a set of series of kind of pillars. The first part is discovery. What do we have today? What can we use? What can we reuse? What needs to go? What needs to be retired? And of course, what can we ultimately leverage in terms of AI capabilities? You then want to be able to look at things to like AI and ML to be able to leverage the insights to give you data-driven decisions. Because honestly, because you have operations teams who are basically sifting through all this data, the problem is that you can't decide independently how each application should be restructured. So we can offload that differential heavy lifting to things like AI and ML. And that will give us the ability to look at how we can retire, retain, or how we could possibly even then basically rationalize certain parts of our application. The problem is that most customers don't realize that they can do this in their current environment today with very low to no touch type of frequency. And the great benefit about this is that it gives you the ability to basically give the executives and the business a readout to say, based upon artificial intelligence, based upon some ML, we've analyzed up to 10 million data points. And I'm just giving an arbitrary example. 10 million data points across the organization, and this is what it's come out to say. This is kind of how we can then take this and accelerate this approach and this trajectory for our organization. All right. So this is a little bit more of a double click into the migration framework. This is the most difficult step of a modernization project or a modernization effort. 79% of organizations who embark on a modernization journey fail. And the reason why they fail is because they don't take into account the very, very top part of this, which is there is an IT and business collaboration that has to occur. And that process is very, very essential, because if you look at the first box, it's going to basically say, frame your business goals. Understand how the business and IT align together, and then exactly how you are going to create strategically a cost and business case for how you are going to drive change across the organization. This is why this is the part that most organizations fail. What they do is they do this. We've deployed some Kubernetes clusters, we've got some microservices running over here, we've got some CI/CD pipelines, we're cool, right? Not exactly. There's still more to do. This whole organization is going to have to perform kind of a shift left, when we're going to have to start to adapt a more agile approach. But to get there, we really need to spend more time in discovery. The reason why most organizations fail in their modernization journey is because they do this too fast. They go too fast and they only have 60% of the data. Would you make a decision if you only had 60% of the information? Probably 70%. 80%, 90% is probably like, that's probably where we want to be. To be able to give us a true quantitative output as to really what we have. And then we want to go through the process to be able to say, all right, once we've done all that part, we've created the business case. We now know that we can now basically have the right organization structure in place. We now can figure out a way in which we can support the modernization trajectory. We have a realistic time frame, and that time frame is really realistic for us. 6 months, 12 months, yeah, probably. But you want to do that where you all are aligned across a single vision. And then you start getting into the skills. What skills are needed across my organization? What technologies, what tools do I need? And most importantly, how do I basically then take all of that and then kind of bundle this up together and then drive it as an organization and then be able to make this application modernization journey successful? It's leveraging the right resources, finding the right skilled resources. And then again, it's having the clearly defined results that really are going to drive what modernization means. And this is why most companies fail, is because they don't really take time. You notice that, of course, the very, very top part, which is the process piece, is the biggest piece of the puzzle. This is why this is so essential. They really kind of skip the first part and say, yeah, we've got 1 or 2 of these things, we're ready to modernize, and then boom, we just start hitting the go button. So this is really where you say, what does a successful journey look like? What does it take? It takes this. It just takes time, effective planning, and then of course it takes the right resources and the right inputs. All right, so you have to leverage AI and ML, especially when you start looking at how are we going to do this without having bias built into decisions across different IT teams. Leveraging things such as AI algorithms can really help organizations make those crucial decisions and really be able to give them, because you're consuming a vast amount of information, a vast amount of data from millions and millions of endpoints, from thousands of resources, of course, your organization that have been there for the last 10, 15 years. And it's just too much information for small operations teams or small architecture teams to be able to kind of gather, consume, and then be able to synthesize all that data to be able to then have an actual data-driven outcome. So we just use AI. So we put the weight on AI to be able to give us some prescriptive guidance on how would these applications perform? What is the current type of right sizing we need to undergo? What does the utilization look like? Is this a high, medium, or low utilization type of environment? And then ultimately leverage that to influence your timelines. So what does a typical modernization journey look like? 6 to 12 months for the short term to be able to modernize, right? You've got this awareness stage you want to start, right? I've got containerization, I've got serverless, I got microservices. I want to approach a multi-cloud strategy. Oh, no, even better. I want to approach a multi-cloud, multi-container strategy. I want to approach it with a multi-cloud, multi-container, multi-this, right? So you run into a lot of customers who have very different technologies to be able to play with, and they all want to be able to kind of have different ways at which they're deployed, whether they're on-prem, in the cloud, private cloud, one of the 3 hyperscalers, 4 hyperscalers, whichever. It doesn't matter really kind of where the end is that you all really have to agree on kind of what the journey is going to look like, and you have to agree on kind of what that orchestration is going to look like for your environment. This is why the part of the awareness phase is so critical. You want to start with containerization, microservices, and then you want to move into the delivering aspect, and that typically takes 3 to 12 months. Now, all right, so I've migrated, I've modernized, I'm all done, right? No, not really. Typically where you see customers is that they'll stop it around 12 months and they'll say, I'm good. But then after about 60 months, they say, I've started to increase now this bubble. So now I've got the double bubble. So I still haven't really modernized yet. So I have costs that are going up, overheads going up. What else am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? They haven't been able to figure out that through iterating through the modernization journey is that they will find ways to constantly keep refining, find ways to optimize, finding ways to re-optimize and then reutilize those workloads to be able to gain higher operational efficiency. They want to lower again, organizations are going to keep looking for ways to lower cost. I need to find a return on investment from this modernization journey. So IT budgets are going to go down, but I also need to find ways to get better right size. So this is really where you start to see the real organization structures where they really start to gain traction is after 12 to 24 months. You really need to start figuring out and start planning on how your modernization journey is going to continue to iterate, because this is an iterative process. You want to keep iterating, keep having good ideas, keep going about this, and you want to keep finding new ways to keep finding ways to keep iterating and innovating. So right around 12 to 24 months is where we see customers really land around this whole modernization journey. And we have some customers that are still modernizing, they're still iterating on this whole idea, and they're 3-4 years into this journey. I mean, Netflix is a great example. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about customer zero, and then I'm going to leave questions at the end so everyone get a chance to ask about questions. So customer zero is a customer, and this is a customer who had 1,800 applications. We had a mandated executive order that said that you had to be out of this environment within 24 months. And you have to have an 80% reduction of the current enterprise applications, and you need to have, 30% of SAP and Workday basically in less than 24 months. Anyone heard of the VMware acquisition with Broadcom? Anyone basically started to feel like there's a huge push for modernization there? A lot of customers are very concerned about where that's going to go. And that's going to lead into a lot of modernization journeys for a lot of customers, because they're looking at the price at which it's going to cost them to stay as is. The cost of doing nothing is going to be quite expensive. But look at the middle part here, the data scattered. Everyone suffers from this. This is data silos at its best, right? Over 100 different types of data warehouses, multiple data repositories, no centralized governance, no centralized source of truth. This is the really scary part, because this unfortunately is where you find a lot of enterprise customers, is they're in the same spot. But there is a way out. If you go through the modernization journey and you go through it with the right mindset, the organization, the IT, and the business all driving to a common outcome, is that you'll eventually get to, look at the achievement here was 100% trusted enterprise-wide, 90% reduction in data warehouses, and then you aligned it through one single visualization tool. This is the art of the possible. This is the possible. This is what you're driving to. Centralized proactive cybersecurity, zero trust architecture, unified architecture, lower on-premise platform footprint, 100-based cloud infrastructure and hosting. So yes, it is definitely possible. You can achieve it. You can achieve it, but it's going to take people, processes, and technology. The people part of it is going to come from your organization. Yes, they're the ones who have all the tribal knowledge. They have all the domain expertise. They have all the technical expertise. But where you want to start to get to where you start to enable modernization and acceleration at scale is by leveraging things such as a factory-based approach. And these factory-based approach are things built around scaled agile. They want to be able to take scaled agile, so safe, and then you also want to be able to leverage this with a factory model that gives you the ability to have velocity and quality at the same time. Because I don't want to just migrate and modernize and just say, yes, I think it works, I think it's okay, I think we're in a pretty good spot. You want to know that you can be able to do this at scale consistently over a period of time and then be able to transform these environments consistently time and time again. So you're going to have a lot of things that are going to run, such as low-hanging fruit. They're going to be the first ones to go. Then you get to the more medium and then complex applications. And then you get to the very, very, very difficult applications like mainframes. And then you figure out how you're going to start peeling back that onion right there. But you leverage things like a factory-based approach. And across the industry, this is what we've seen to be the most successful in customers looking to kind of help accelerate that transformation, whether it's to a different data center or to a cloud provider or wherever. But part of their modernization journey has to begin with how are you going to execute this at scale? And then how can you keep this duration over a period of 6, 12, 24 months or longer? So there's a QR code here to understand more about the customer zero case study. Sorry, I spelled case wrong. It's cast. But that's modernization basic. I could talk about this all day. So I'll open this up now. We got about 5 more minutes. Anyone have any questions on app modernization, transformation? We got one question over here.
How do you use AI to speed up the delivery?
Sorry.
How do you use AI to speed up delivery of modernization?
So that's an interesting one. So again, is leveraging AI as often as much as you can into the data insights, data collection, data gathering phase, using AI to give you better decisions. I wish it was just as easy as to kind of just basically put ChatGPT or use your other different type of language model in and say, immediately just simply just do the work. It's more about, again, is that you have to scale the organization. You want to use AI to take the bias out of it because, again, is that when you work across different organizations is that when we say we're going to go through our app rationalization process, the first thing people say is, I don't want to lose my application. I don't care, I don't want to lose it, right? But if you're using data gathered through AI and ML, is that you can basically say is you have 0% usage, 0% consumption, the licensing costs us $7 to $10 million a year, it's got to go. And that's really where you use data to drive the decisions. I hope that answered your question.
With the AI training, because it's like expensive and kind of like brute forcing everything and only using prior stuff that would have had to have been documented. Since you're going into these companies that a lot of times the domain experience is gone because people retired, died, etc. These old systems the domain experience just isn't there and nobody knows, so they can't even turn things off or turn it back on again because they don't know if it'll restart.
Yep.
Without kicking it. So how can the AI model go in and understand those things without the curation? Like who's curating this AI model to make sure it's not going in and actually breaking the mainframe rather than trying to fix it, because of the hallucinations and such?
Wait, so I don't think I understand the question. You're talking about AI hallucinations in older legacy systems?
Like you would have to create your own or curate a model so that it can do what you need it to do. So like who's curating, like are you using multimodal like ingestion of like what documents do you have? Are we tagging it as this and then feeding it into an engine?
All right, so I'll answer the easy part of the question first is basically you are going to run into a lot of tribal knowledge that is just simply not there anymore. Organizations have went through changes over the last 10, 15 years. There are many systems that have outdated runbooks. Many people don't know how these applications are supported. We don't really know who owns them or who consumes them. That's the unfortunate part is that's the unfortunate reality is that yes, you do see that a lot. When you start to leverage AI tools is that you want to get the best data ingestion across the entire landscape as much as you possibly can. Remember back to 60% of organizations, 60% of the data For the other remaining amount, you want to try to find a way to either you perform manual scans, manual interviews, or try to find ways that you can try to better understand exactly how that particular system is configured. There's no environment you walk into and they say, oh, we've got all these updated run books. Everything is up to date. We updated them last month, and then here it is right here. And they hand it to you and say, here, go modernize this. Never, rarely, ever does that ever happen. It's more like, okay, most of the people are gone. We don't really know how these things work. How are we going to modernize those? And unfortunately, things are going to break. And I think that's where the buy-in gets in is once you turn it off and people start screaming, then you'll kind of know who the app owners are. So we just do that and see who screams. I hate to say it, but that's kind of the pain point is like, who owns it? We don't know. And then you turn it off and then someone says, I was using that. Yeah, that's typically kind of how it happens, especially in a decommission process, is that you'll look to leverage AI to look at basically when a server should be end of lifed, and then you'll turn it off and then someone will scream and you'll say, well, that's running Windows 95. Wow. Okay.
Steve, back here.
Last question, yes.
So when going from a monolithic to a microservice approach, how granular do you get when you're trying to trim down to the microservices? For example, I have a service that looks at several different areas. It looks at HR, it goes out, talks to AD, talks to an ERP system, goes to a ticketing system. Does that get separated out by the areas, or does it literally get micro to the point of each call within the area is a microservice?
So different tools do different things. That's where the dependency mapping goes into, is that you want to understand how each system is connected and how each one is interconnected with each other, right? Is that when you move applications or you start to change things, is that eventually you're going to have to figure out that this one single system touches probably 30 plus systems that you weren't aware about. That's where the dependency mapping comes in, and that's when you start to do your discovery and analysis is, have we gathered all the dependency? And then what you do is you do a dependency mapping scorecard. And typically with organizations is that they'll say, listen, applications that rank either 10 or higher on the dependencies scorecard, these applications cannot be moved just yet. We have to figure out a way that we're gonna have to move them slowly but painfully. Things that rate lower on a scorecard of 10 or lower, meaning they have lower dependencies, we can probably use those as low-hanging fruit and get those moved as fast as possible. But these other ones, we just know they're going to basically just be the ones that are going to take more time to just move because of the dependencies. Cool. All right. I think I'm at time. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I'll be around for the rest of the day. Thank you for your time and enjoy Tampa.